We're just waiting a few more minutes until some more people join, and then we'll get started.
Did I get to the right place, Greg?
You did, yeah. We're just waiting a few more minutes to get a few more people.
No, awesome. I was just having some technical difficulties here called lack of coffee before the meeting, I guess.
All right,
So,
you probably got time to go run and get one then.
no, I got it.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't in me.
Such a troubled life nowadays, eh, Steve?
It is, so many things to worry about. Got to start my birthday yesterday with all my favorite people on the planet.
Your birthday was yesterday?
It was, and I
A-
sat here,
And
sat here
and
and
we're
listened.
your favorite people?
Well, I found that surprising too, Gada. That's a sad realization to come to on your birthday, isn't it?
We're good people. We could be somebody's favorite. I'll take that as a compliment, Steve.
Happy birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. It was. I'm gonna go sit at the ballpark with the guys today as carry on.
Now that sounds fun.
Oh, so you're day drinking now.
You better believe it, man. You ever seen the movie A Little Miss Sunshine?
No.
I
Yes,
think so, but I don't remember.
I've seen
Yeah,
it.
I'm the grandpa experimenting with all kinds of life's fun.
Okay, well, maybe give one more minute. We'll restart some of the items. Okay. Why don't we get started? Still got a few people joining, but we might as well get started. So we're day 2 for the StarlingX PTG, and the agenda we'll just review the agenda for today. Yesterday was mostly technical type topics. Today is mostly not so technical topics. So um, I wanted to kind of put up front some of the topics that a few people are involved with that need to leave early today. Like, I think, Steve, you're only around for an hour, and I don't see David Parsons joined yet, but he's only around for an hour. So I had those up front to, discuss new users. We do that with David when he joins. We had Steve was involved in the StarlingX test topic with Rob, and then there's also the review stuff that Steve was working on. We wanted to talk a bit about ARM server updates, and I was thinking we'd take a break, and then the last two topics were kind of a retrospective, and then Ildiko had added a discussion around StarlingX messaging. Any changes we think we need to make to that agenda, or are we good? Other than maybe we'll delay this until David joins.
Yeah, and we can, when he does, we can pause wherever I am. If you want.
Okay. Let me just put this here. Okay. Okay, so why don't we get started on the StarlingX test topic that we wanted to chat about. And so I think this was, I put Steve and Rob's name here because I think you guys were talking offline a bit about this, and I think maybe we wanted to have the discussion with a wider forum here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think this was related to just the way we do testing, and then also the fact that the way we do testing kind of I think was one of the reasons that we had to delay the release in SDX9. I think that was kind of the context of how this topic came up, right?
That was the genesis, and then a little bit of the dependency with bringing ARM servers on board, or bringing on contributed hardware. We'll put it that way. It wasn't so. It's but the genesis was indeed as you described.
Okay.
Do you want me to try to share?
Oh, sure. If you've got something to share, yeah.
I teed up a few things, and for both discussions, the materials are already in the room or in your share.
In the Google folder slot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Am I probably sharing a beautiful background is all? There we go. Is that working?
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. So it's been a while since I looked at these, but I think you teed it up nicely, and what it kind of boiled down to in my mind is, and I've got just a couple of slides here. This is intended to be a conversation, but the slides are here to provoke conversation rather than be a presentation. So it kind of came down to I wanted to tee up the conversation with the background that Greg provided, as well as bringing into account the experience around trying to onboard contributed equipment. And it really kind of came down to I think the discussion should at least center around or start with we've got a single member contribution to the community in terms of test, or a broader community contribution. It really, I think this community just needs to make a conscious decision to which it wants. So I'm not presenting those as a versus good versus evil or anything. It's just there are pros and cons to both, and I think having the open conversation around what those trade-offs are and what the broader community would like and is willing to do in either of those contexts, I think is really kind of the summary here of what I think the conversation needs to be. Right, so just to start the conversation, and Rob, jump in anytime, my friend.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, I don't need to be the pioneer here with the arrows in the back, right? So, um, so first off, just, do we want to change how we do tests, right? And related to that, is there interest or need to modify the current test function structure? So even if it's not, fully one member or fully community, is there anything in the middle that could or should be done to help? So the current structure is that Wind River does contribute, I have in quotes, all things test to the community. And that is done as a contribution. So, with that in mind, StarlingX Quality benefits from Wind River's experience, commercial experience in this space as well. The test execution is conducted by Wind River. The test infrastructure is maintained by Wind River. And all the test results are shared with the rest of the community. So the results are completely open. However, there is resource contention and prioritization that has occurred between kind of Wind River's product focus and the community testing, and that's the experience that Greg alluded to earlier, where a release, a StarlingX release, was delayed. And then community process exists to contribute. I don't know if that's current state or not, but community process exists to contribute new and fix existing tests, but test unfamiliarity is contribution inhibitor. So that is current state. So the process exists, create a story, go through contribution, code contribution process, but there's a lack of familiarity beyond the current testing to even, to be able to understand the tests and to offer new or fixes to tests. So I'll pause there, and Rob, is there anything you want to round out there or add?
Yeah, just on that last point a little bit, Steve, I think we can qualify that one. It's an excellent point, and something that probably the community, needs to know a little bit more about in terms of, I think the statement and way and how you've had it written used to be true. I'll say it's less true today because, and I'll talk most specifically around our sanity execution and the, that's automated in terms of how we do sanity. That automation used to, there are repos in the community that exist, but we don't use them anymore. They used to be maintained by Intel, and Intel used to do the sanity executions. And when Intel, bowed out of doing that, and Wind River assumed responsibility for the sanity execution and reporting, it was, I'll call it, near impossible for us to consume what Intel had developed and be able to run it in a like environment. So the environment where Intel ran the sanity was pretty sophisticated, had a lot of hardware that, Intel wasn't willing to provide that to the community. They needed those labs and that hardware for other Intel purposes. And Wind River was not in a position to replicate those labs and secure hardware to do that. So all of that to say is, when that happened, we made the decision to ultimately kind of bring sanity in-house into Wind River. We had to do that in order to keep things moving forward, to be able to provide results for the community. But those tests now are ultimately, the sanity we execute for Wind River's commercial product is what we execute on StarlingX. And that's done in labs maintained by Wind River that are internal, not necessarily externally accessible. The code that we use is the same set of tests that, again, we run against our commercial product for sanity. So we maintain that, but it again is not commercially available, or is not available to the community to contribute. So, in terms of contributing new tests, that would, a community member could not open up the code base and run a new test. Again, that code base does exist in the community. It's there, but it's stale. We don't use it anymore. So that's one of the biggest changes, and one of the areas where, we were not, from a Wind River perspective, in a position and didn't have the resources to open source the Sanity, if you will. So, that's the state we're in now, and that's kind of the reason, you and I kind of got to where we are today on this topic is, is there anybody else in the community that's interested in trying to pick up some of that work to get that back on track? To this point, I've not been successful in getting commitment from Wind River to be able to do that from a resource perspective. So the mitigation for that is that, and the example of ARM, which maybe you're going to get to, is the ARM guys wanted to run Sanity against some new hardware that was procured, and we basically told them, well, you can't do that because the code's not accessible to you, but we'll do it for you, right? And that's kind of what we're in now, is as new hardware comes on board, Wind River has to get that installed, deployed, and we execute the tests against systems like that. So that's the kind of slight curveball on terms of that last bullet, in the sense that to date it would be difficult. I mean, if somebody wanted to contribute tests, it would kind of have to come through Wind River as it stands today, until we make changes to try to open source that automation framework again.
Yep. So that certainly rounds out the situation. Thanks for that. And I don't want the audience to lose sight of the value that was buried in this set of bullets, right? And especially with your color there at the end. So a StarlingX release is tested to Wind River's product release criteria, correct?
Ultimately, correct.
Yeah. So that's a pretty significant value add to the rest of the community as we kind of go through this discussion. It comes at the cost right now of, well, it's not really 100% tied, is it? So I'll stop my statement there. Anybody else want to jump in with any kind of commentary or insight? Okay. So I call this my shameless plug. But the test dev and the maintenance, I think, is a way that the greater community could learn StarlingX internals, right? So having the tests open is a way, again, to expose more about what the internals are, and as a community we've kind of had a bit of a struggle, whether we develop training, have time to develop training, give exposure to experts. This could be another mechanism. Wasn't primary to the conversation, but as I kind of walked through this, it became pretty obvious that there could be an opportunity here for using test participation, if you will, to expose the internals of StarlingX as a pedagogical tool as much as anything else. But that's kind of a side shameless plug more than mainstream of what the conversation is. So the one big question, and I don't know if I pose it here or not, but we talk about two different kinds of potential courses of action. there's probably others, but this teed up the conversation. But at the core of this is, if the broader community wants community, access to the tests, test infrastructure, and so on, is there an appetite and a commitment from the broader community to help make those changes? I don't know, Rob, if you want to take the talking stick and talk about kind of the constraints that you might have in being able to just open source this stuff today.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we would, if we wanted to do this, it would have to be going back to look at the code that's out there today. So like I say, there is a repository that's there. It's stale. It hasn't been looked at for a little over a year now. So no contributions have been made to it. So I think it's probably looking at reviving that and figuring out, an environment, if we want to try to create an environment where that can be executed. Right. So I think that's, short of that, it's, building something from scratch. If somebody wanted to step in and, evaluate or apply resources to creating a framework from scratch, where then community members could contribute content to it, right? So I think there's two options there in terms of how we would revive this to make it more a community-based approach as opposed to kind of stuck within the confines of Wind River.
Yeah, and part of what this conversation wants to flesh out or to surface is whether there is an appetite in the community to engage in that activity beyond Wind River, right? Fair to say that?
Absolutely, from my perspective, yeah.
Yeah, from my perspective, I would absolutely like to see non-Wind River contributors be able to do testing, like, be able to, optionally do the sanity testing every other week or every other release or something like that. That would be my focus, as opposed to open source the testing so that other community members could learn from that. That seems kind of secondary to me. To me, I think the primary focus would be, it would be extremely helpful if a non-Wind River team was capable of what, existed and was capable of doing testing in case we ever get into the same situation we were with in SCX9, where the Wind River contributors, due to internal business reasons, were not available to do the testing, and then that impacted the whole community.
Great question on that. How would someone from any other organization be able to do the testing if they don't have access to the tests?
No, I absolutely agree. I think it's sort of a chicken and egg thing, right? I think if we were to work on open sourcing the test stuffs, it would be very helpful to actually have a non-Wind River contributor that was signed up to do this, actively working with us on that open sourcing. Kind of, you need that first guy to kind of validate that you're doing the open sourcing of the testing correctly, and that it's really worthwhile, right? We don't want to do mounds of work and then have no one else in the community participate.
Right, and that's one of my biggest concerns, is what you just said there, Greg, is I think we want to be cautious as a community as to, before we decide to invest in doing that there is interest and somebody's, gonna put their hand up and, volunteer to contribute. in those areas. Otherwise, I think the shortest path to success is status quo. Quite frankly.
Yeah, and I didn't want to put those words into your mouth, but that's, I mean, I think that's an absolutely fair position to have, right? It's like it's working, maybe not optimally, but there isn't anybody else around stepping up and rolling up their sleeves and identifying that they have resources to do this. I guess the only the counterpoint that I would want to consider is there some level of investment, we'll just call it VC or startup, right? That might prove inviting to members that they would engage. We've struggled as a community to grow the community, the community diversity and its contributions, and there might be some consideration just outside of Rob, just outside of any function. So I'm not targeting test at all in this, but there might be a worthwhile exploration in understanding if there isn't some amount of investment to kind of catalyze the effort to draw into back to how do you solve the chicken and the egg if you're going to solve it, right? I'll just leave it at that. Is there any other discussion or thought there? I mean, Greg, you're on the TSC, right? Is there some something you would like to see or suggest that we consider here along this lines, either with test, or is there another area, right? But
I think, I don't know, to me, if, with respect to the chicken and egg thing, I think it would make much more sense to me to have the non-Wind River contributor step up first in any scenario, whether it's test or whether it's networking or whether it's security or anything like that, to have that person step up and say, I want to contribute to, XYZ project. And then basically have that person, work closely with that project in order to, pick up any work he wants to do or any work that we have for him to do, sort of thing. I think it's more of a joint thing rather than that we do things separately and the contributors work independently.
if I don't disagree with that at all, but if there was such a person or group of people that did step forward, is the environment such that test source and test infrastructure or access to either of those would be accessible or even required? Under what conditions wouldn't that be required for them to help, right?
Yeah,
So
those are good questions, and I think that like the answer that I think the obvious answer to your question is that, yeah, if somebody stepped up and said, yeah, I'm willing to do sanity testing every other week or something like that, as like a backup team for the Wind River contributors in the test team, then yeah, they would not be able to do it. But I think Rob's team would be much more motivated to do the work to open source the test stuff if there's a person there, willing to test what he's doing, willing to work on even what's the solution for open sourcing it properly, because we may have to change test frameworks and stuff like that. So it'd be even better to have, the non-Wind River contributor participating in some of those decisions and stuff like that.
When it comes to test infrastructure, is there a way to run any parts of sanity testing in the open info donated test environment? They even have ARM servers available. Also, like if you're expecting someone to get involved, like, is there a middle ground to open source some parts of the current sanity tests? I don't know, either the framework or at least the test case descriptions, something that can give people an idea in terms of what it entails to run sanity testing for StarlingX if it cannot be done on open infra hardware.
I think there's solutions to all those problems. And like I said, I think I think the only hesitation on Rob's side is just that, we'd like to see the non-Wind River contributor work with us in order to do the open sourcing to make it such that, yeah, at least, maybe some portion of sanity or maybe sanity, and, don't worry about regression for now, just get the sanity open sourced and working yeah, I think all those things that you said are feasible,
Agreed. I was going to say that.
but require work, right?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, it's all, I think, things that we can achieve. Again, if there's a desire to do that, then we can work with whomever is expressing that interest, and I think we can make those things happen.
I was also wondering if there's a way to take a step before we have someone specifically signing up. I mean, testing the software should be part of the open source artifacts and open source work to demonstrate complete openness, following the 4 opens, all those things. So to, again, provide the resources to people who stumble onto the project, because it's a huge jump to get the platform working and then trying to figure out if someone can get involved in testing if they have no idea what that would entail. And that can very easily keep people and organizations away. They don't even think about it because it's not there to start with. So I'm just fishing for a middle ground, if it exists, to have a starting point that would make it easier to get others on board.
So, yeah, I don't know if I am responding directly to the question, Ildiko, but on this slide here, I do have, I think, something that reflects exactly what Rob is communicating. Some examples of the potential work items down there at the bottom, and some examples of potential transitional work items. So, I suppose it's possible to pick something from this list that's small enough. You know, from my perspective, you know, it's working for the community that exists today. And we have struggled to grow, you know, that community that exists today has struggled to grow beyond its current demographics. And here's an opportunity potentially to grow beyond it, but the community exists today fundamentally would need to make an investment that there's no clear return on. I think is fundamentally where we're at, right? But starting, if there's any kind of startup capability, maybe pick an item here as your starting point, maybe Ildiko, to consider.
Could be, yeah.
But right, it still takes an investment. So is there, it's kind of an alternate approach, Greg and Rob, is there, you know, some kind of a case that we as community could put together that might be of interest to convince Wind River potentially to actually, you know, invest in a catalyzing activity? And again, I'm going back to Greg, you said there was benefit. You thought there'd be benefit if, you know, if somebody in the community could run sanity on a I'll call it a ritualistic basis. I don't know, it was every other week, but you thought there'd be benefit to both the community and to as it exists today and for growing the community. So if we picked something and maybe built a case around it that showed benefit if there was mild investment. The other option here is, you know, I came into this is a discussion. We kind of biased the conversation here to making the change. I don't know if we explicitly said that that was the preferred way, but kind of, you know, either I think we either do something or I'm back with Rob. The status quo is where we are.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the Wind River types that would make the decisions on investing would probably want to see, you know, like a non-Wind River contributor, you know, actually, you know, available to take over some of this stuff. I think if we had that scenario, I think it would be more possible to present, you know, to the Wind River investment decision makers that it's worthwhile in doing this.
So where do I, you know, I kind of don't want to leave any kind of dangling here. Is there we're done until somebody shows up, maybe create a proposal, or, you know, it's status quo until somebody shows up and asks for change? Right? I'm looking to kind of wrap up where we are with the conversation.
Yeah, I was going to make the recommendation, Steve, that maybe we we move this to our community weekly meetings as a topic we can address and, continue to share with community members that show up there in terms of if there is, and explore whether there is any interest. Like I say, I don't think we're going to solve it today for sure. I mean, I don't hear anybody currently on the call anyhow jumping up and down saying, yes, I want to do this, I want to do this. So I think our next best option is to, add it to our community agenda discussion and see if we get any traction there. And, that might give us our answer. If there's very little traction, then that might tell us what the path forward is. Whereas opposite to that, if there is some interest, then we explore how to make changes with that interest.
So maybe once I'm making something up for the moment, right? Maybe once a month, this is a topic on the community meeting. It shows up in the notes. Maybe there's a something on the discuss list as well once a month for, I don't know, 3 months. And if it's nothing but crickets, then we kind of know.
Yeah, that would be the thing that, like, that I would want to try to figure out how do we do is, how do you make it known that the community is looking for someone to help on testing? Because I think it's potentially a good spot for a new contributor to start contributing.
Yep.
Yeah, just how do we make it known that that we are looking for someone? Like, is it like, I like your idea about making it a regular topic on the community meeting. Maybe we need to make it, something on our website somewhere about, looking for new community members in these areas type of advertisement or something.
I
Maybe
could help looking into that. Just one quick note, we have David on the call and we only have 17 minutes till the top of the hour. So I'm happy to help with the making this more visible type of challenges.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the same thing that David, but I think we were sort of wrapping up there on.
Hi, just to chip in there, my meetings at in 15 minutes was cancelled, so I got an extra half an hour, so I'm not too.
Okay.
So I'll finish up what you need to finish up, and then
so. All right, thanks, David. So kind of relinquish talking stick, but maybe think about where we would get I guess the least, well, I don't want to word this. You talked about the value, you could see immediate value in sanity testing. Maybe we specifically look for, help with, community interest in helping with sanity testing as opposed to the whole universe of testing.
Yeah.
And I see the notes you're adding there, Greg, and so you said make our needs. So I want to clarify. I don't think it's necessarily a need.
Yeah.
Maybe a want, maybe.
Well, or if there's a desire from within the community. Right now, the challenge is that it's difficult for community members to contribute. That's the reality.
Yep.
Based on how things are, right? So, from my perspective, it's working. I've got the resources secured to be able to continue to do the testing we need to do on the StarlingX side of things from within Wind River. But if there is, a desire from within the community for others to contribute, and somebody wants to, provide some backup in your example from sanity, things like that, then I think it's worth exploring. That's kind of the position I'm trying to. So I don't think it's a need necessarily, and I appreciate you're just trying to put some words on the page to capture it, but I think it's more if there's a desire from within the community to be able to contribute and do some of that stuff and consume some of the test artifacts, then we would want help from them at that point to.
Yeah, because what I'm afraid of is sort of kind of maybe I think what Ildiko was hinting at is that if I've got a new person snooping around the StarlingX website and, you know, maybe playing with StarlingX, and then maybe thinking, oh, maybe I'd like to contribute a bit. And if they start poking around at testing and stuff like that, they might see, oh, all the testing, I don't know how they do their testing, and then just give up without even talking to us, sort of thing.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, that's a fair statement, 100%. If those people are poking around, I've never seen them at the test call. So it's a pretty lonely call with Wind River folks at best. So, but totally appreciate your point. I agree with you. You know, if that's, you know, if I was poking around the website and I wanted to know more about test, I would go to that meeting. And, you know, for the 3 years I've been doing that, aside from when Intel was involved, those are the only folks we ever saw on that call.
Hey.
Sorry, Steve, you just, I apologize. Up until recently when Steve hopped on, I apologize. My bad.
I mean, to be fair, if someone is poking around and doing something with StarlingX, they usually want to like the usual motivation is have, you know, the features extended or something around the functionalities of the platform. And testing is something that should cover anything that was added in the past or will be added in the future. So I really rarely see someone saying that I specifically want to do testing. So it's kind of something that would be part of the artifacts that are available for the platform to make it complete. So someone could extend existing testing to say that I want to make sure that my feature that I just added is covered also in sanity and not just be unit and functional tests.
Yeah.
So in that sense, waiting for someone who comes and says that I really want to help you open source testing, I don't see that happening. So that's why if there's anything that we can do to make people understand what goes into sanity testing, how big lift that is, that there is a desire that it should all be open source, but there's no capacity to do that right now. That's easier to find someone if we have information available for them to understand that we would love people to chip in, not just on the functionality, but also on the testing side.
Yeah, I think that was the experience we had with our community member that we're going to be discussing later. At least that was my observation. So, so should we wrap it up then? Here?
Yeah, I think so. I don't want to lose David before we have that conversation. So
the only thing I'd like to add is I just really appreciated working with Rob on this, and very open and transparent about what was going on. And without that conversation, I don't think, or set of conversations, I don't think we would have had what I think was just a pretty good session. So thank you, Rob.
No worries. Appreciate your interest, Steve. Thanks for showing up to the meetings.
making Rob not feel alone. Okay. Okay, so the next topic was one that we've had a couple of times at these meetings, because usually these meetings are the meetings where a few new people show up. Last year we had an interesting presentation from a lady that was trying to build a system with StarlingX to detect Canadian forest fires. So that was kind of cool discussion. This time, actually, we have one new member, David Parsons. So David, apologize for putting you on the spot, but I guess we really just want to hear kind of, what you've been up to with StarlingX, some details about your use case, and then any other details about your experience in using StarlingX, and any other background about yourself or the company you work for.
Yeah, sure. I'll start off with who we are, so you get a little bit of idea of what we do. So I work for a company called New Wireless. I am the CTO, who's trying to drive in the product development. We started off. We've been an engineering company for a number of years. Uh, it's New with N at the end. So.
Okay.
We started off doing products and services for larger companies, but we decided to change our business model a little bit, and we started developing radio network equipment. So the equipment that goes on the top of cell towers to provide coverage to users. So similar to the big vendors like Ericsson, Huawei, Nokia, but our focus is very much on the rural areas. So we built radio equipment for the rural areas. So we see ourselves as complementary to the big vendors. We don't see the big vendors stepping into those areas just because the business model is very different and the requirements are very different. So at the moment we are doing that. We develop that. We do the hardware and the software. Our focus is on telecoms, and we are using StarlingX as the platform, or as a platform that we looked at a couple of years ago, trying to improve the performance, the reliability, the redundancy, and have that embedded in a platform rather than trying to do it ourselves, and that we can focus on the protocol stacks, on the telecom side, on all the work that's required on that side.
So you're currently using StarlingX?
We're currently using StarlingX. I think an earlier version, probably version release 7. It's not in production. It's really in our lab because we're in the process of developing our next generation platform. So we have an early generation platform that is what where we're making our business, but we're developing our next generation platform, and there we're trying to make use of StarlingX and have a much more robust platform on which to build it. Because of the architecture of our equipment, we have a centralized node that sits with the mobile operator in their NOC, but we then have a lot of small remote sites that sits in very remote areas and are connected with satellite. We are looking at using StarlingX and containers to allow us to deploy our solutions on the edge sites or the remote sites and then be managed from a decentralized location.
So are you okay? So are you using the distributed cloud architecture with StarlingX?
I believe so.
Okay, and is it are the applications that you're deploying, are they primarily containerized?
Yes.
Okay,
The
so
application.
are you using the containerized OpenStack at all within StarlingX?
Yes, we're using, I think the word is, it's obviously OpenStack. We're using Kubernetes. I think it's Docker, and obviously some configuration features like with Ansible and with Heat, I believe. I don't know the in and outs of everything, but yeah.
Okay, but the applications that you're building and deploying, some of them are containerized and some of them are VM based. Like you have
Yes,
a
some of
mix?
them. So yeah, some of the centralized ones are VM based. The ones that were put in the remote sites are containerized.
Okay. 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 And is it 5G wireless or is it 4G?
No. We're in the rural areas, so we don't have to go for the latest and greatest technology. So we actually go from 2G all the way up to 4G at the moment. We can potentially look at 5G, but it's not something that the rural communities need. They don't need the ultra low latency, and they don't need a huge number of connections and the huge data speeds because the infrastructure to support that is not there.
Okay. And you think you're using distributed cloud
I think we're using distributed cloud.
architecture, and I don't know if you, and then do you know what you're deploying as subclouds? Because I know the only reason I ask is that we have some big 5G customers of the commercial product in Wind River. We've got a mix, but some of them just primarily use small single server subclouds. So they have a distributed cloud architecture, and they have like 1,000 subclouds spread geographically all over the place. But the subclouds themselves are just little single server.
Yeah, I think that's the way we're doing it. So we develop the remote sites. So we've developed the equipment on the remote sites, which is Intel based. It's based on at the moment the prototypes are based on a Xeon the CPU processor. So it's pretty powerful. But we have one of those at each of the remote sites, and then we have a couple of central servers that reside typically at the customer premises, or in our case is the lab, and then we can do control those subclouds or those different remote sites in different locations.
So you say you develop your own hardware.
Yes.
Like you're not talking about radio hardware here. You're talking about just.
No, we develop our radio hardware. So
What are you using for running StarlingX on though?
We're running those on servers, on just typically Lenovo servers. I think we're following the specifications, like a number of CPUs, 64 gigabits of RAM, and those are pretty much running on bare metal that we provide, rather than sitting in the cloud.
Right. Okay. And those processors that are running StarlingX are basically like co-located, co-resident with the radio hardware?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
Yeah, we're not so much in, and probably a lot of you guys have heard about the Open RAN and the ORAN stuff. We're not so much in that arena. Why? Because we are connected in very remote locations, so we can't have distributed architectures. We have to push a lot of the hardware or the equipment to the edge, because we have to work over satellite, because there's no other ways to get there. There's no, let's say, fiber, there's no terrestrial links that can be connects. So we have a lot of the architecture sitting, or of the equipment sitting at the remote site. So yes, our radio equipment is a combination of the baseband, what they call the baseband, which is the Xeon processor plus FPGA, and transceivers.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my experience is that this is a pretty typical telecom type architecture that you're using for.
It is, but we add a little bit more complications by making it very rural. So there becomes a lot more challenges to make it the structure a lot more robust. Allows to manage with latency a lot better. Outages, things like that need to be considered, that you don't typically need as much in the urban environment. So, for example, we don't deploy backup generator to make sure we have 3 days of autonomy in case something goes wrong. No, we use renewable energy systems, and if all of a sudden one day is a bit cloudy and we're going to start seeing some low energy on the batteries, then we need to do something. And so there's special requirements there that we need to look at. So it's power is one of the key requirements. The other one is the backhaul latency. Typically it's satellite. And the other one is some optimization that we need to also look at to improve the connectivity.
Okay, like what is the typical latency and bandwidth between your central cloud and yours and
The
the
latency, yeah, the latency, our typical one that we've seen in some projects, not using the StarlingX architecture, but our own architecture, is around 550 milliseconds. But we have seen latencies go up to 750 milliseconds. That's because they're based on geo satellites. Maybe with the uprise of Leo, that will reduce to around 100 milliseconds. But yeah, that's.
and so what's the typical bandwidth that you get?
At the moment, we're not using much because we're using the earlier technologies. But
No, I meant like, sorry, I meant like the bandwidth between your central cloud and your subclouds running StarlingX. Like, is it typically, are you getting, 1 gig between them, or are you getting?
yes. So with the way between the subcloud, no, we get a lot less. We're probably looking at between the subcloud, i.e. the remote unit, and the central part. We're probably looking at something like speeds of what would it be? I'm probably guessing here a little bit, but we're probably looking at somewhere around 100 megabps, maybe a bit less, maybe 10. We're definitely not in the gigs.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty typical of some of the users we have, is that they have disturbingly low bandwidths between their central cloud and their subclouds.
Mhm.
So that's been like a design requirement for quite a while with respect to StarlingX to operate in that environment. And
Okay.
I don't know much about them, but there is a lot of, well, I think a lot. I think there is 2 or 3 features that we've done in maybe SDX 8 and 9, and maybe even planned for 10 around improved power savings and power metrics and stuff like that. So I think you'll see some new features as you move to SDX 8 and 9 on that stuff.
Mhm.
Oh, that's interesting. So how long have you had StarlingX in your labs?
I think we're talking about two years, but the company has gone through a bit of a, let's say, a shakeup. We've had some financial issues. We've come out of the, let's say, the ashes and back on track. We're still not entirely there because we had to change our business model, which made it a little bit more capex intensive. So we're building our own sites and interconnecting to the mobile operator rather than mobile operator building the sites and using our equipment. A big difference there. But yeah, we've been using it for about 2 years, I think. Problem is that because of the situation with the company, we did lose some valuable people that were looking at the StarlingX side of things. I'm not too sure if they ever really understood it perfectly, but because it's quite a large platform with a lot of flexibility. But I don't think we've been able to use it to the best of its ability.
Yeah, okay, that's good. And maybe just off the top of your head, some good things that you've experienced about StarlingX, some bad things that you've experienced about StarlingX.
I think the good things are sorry.
Sure.
Seconds here. Someone coughed or sneezed. I don't know. So I think some of the good things is exactly what we're looking for. That are our pain points in our own solution. one of them is the redundancy that we see. So in our previous product line, well, our redundancy was pretty much a cold standby. We had to physically make some changes. Where the StarlingX, the idea of having this all-in-one duplex mode would allow us to have a active and a standby, and allow us to recover a lot quickly. Considering we are on telecom side, we needed to be we need to have a lot more reliability and uptime and availability, and that's one of the things that lured us towards that. I think also the idea of containerization is something that's very useful, because it would allow us to manage different technologies as separate applications on the remote sites, on the, or as you call it, on the subclouds. So for example, if there was an issue with one of the technologies, they would be treated as a completely separate container that we could restart, or we could take offline without impacting the other. And it also would allow us to deploy other applications that may not be necessarily telecom related, but may be required for processing edge data or doing some other intelligent processing at the edge, which is something that we would also look at. So I think that those are two main things that brought us, to StarlingX.
Excellent. And any bad things?
I think I think I did mention it to someone else. I think the documentation is quite complete. There's a lot of it, and so that's a good thing. I think some of the challenges we have is it has taken us a while. I don't know if this is a fault of the community, but it has taken us a while to get really acquainted with it and try and I think there's quite sufficient flexibility in there that we need to. It's not something that necessarily is completely out of the box as we see it. We have to take some decisions and then see how it works because of the way we need to implement it. So that flexibility adds, let's say, a little bit more complications in making it work as we wanted it to work, because maybe we're not doing something quite right. We've also seen some issues with power outages. The company is based in Canada, so when snow gets a little bit heavy and we run out of juice in our UPS system, we do get power outages. And what we see is that we have controller 0 and controller 1, and sometimes they just don't come back up, and we have to reload everything. So I think that's one of our main challenges. But I don't know if that's a symptom of an earlier release that has been, let's say, improved upon, or something that we are not configuring correctly, and that's why we don't see the recovery as we would expect it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anything's been done in that area.
Well, like how many followers do you have down there? How many switches?
Get him.
Was that a question for me, or
Was it a question? Oh, it sounded like he was on the phone or something.
Yeah, I think it was a side conversation. But yeah, I don't know if we've done anything with respect to kind of dead office recovery off power outages in STX 8 or 9. So there may be some outstanding issues that are still there on kind of dead office recovery type scenario.
And the other challenge I would say we have is that we've had some issues with Kubernetes and trying to get new, I think it's called workloads, joining the cluster. We've had some challenges as well.
So getting new workloads running on the cluster?
Joining the cluster. I think that was the word they used, joining the cluster.
Oh, you mean you were trying to get new worker nodes to join the cluster?
Exactly. So for example, when we have an edge site and we need to bring in a new container to join the cluster from the central location, I think that's one of the areas that we've had some issues with. This is all we're talking. I think we're talking StarlingX 7.5, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I have to maybe look at that closer. Okay, but maybe just to try to keep us on time, anybody else have any questions around kind of David's use case or?
I'd just like to add there, we're a small company still, with big dreams. So we're about 50 people strong, based out of Quebec. But the way our business is being built is that we're looking to grow a significantly large number of sites. So our plan over the next 4 years now, I think, remaining in the plan, is to build 10,000 sites across Africa. And at the moment we have around 4,500 under contract. And so we are looking to become pretty big, have a pretty big presence in Africa. So and in fact, so we're looking to cover millions of people across Africa. So we would ultimately eventually become bigger than, for example, operators in Canada, because there's 35 million there, but we're looking to cover, hundreds, 100 million, maybe a little bit more over the next 4 years in Africa.
Okay. And so of your 50 people, like, are there, oh, you must have software designers.
Yes, we do. We have software and hardware design. The R&D team is small for what we're doing, so it makes this a little bit slow. But we have an R&D team which is about 15 people.
Okay. And
with some external consultancy that helps us.
And as your company grows, like, which I imagine it would if you're going to be, deploying tens of thousands of sites in Africa, as your company grows, do you see that you, besides just being a user of StarlingX, that you may transition to doing some contributions into StarlingX as well? I'm not going to hold you to it, but
no, I certainly think we would. I think it's as we grow, I think we would become a contributor, and even some of the test cases that you're talking about, the challenges you're finding to get someone outside, we could potentially become one of those. I don't know how soon, but because of the deployments that we're doing, the size of the deployments, as well as the let's say the complexity around our deployments, we would really put StarlingX to the test.
Right.
So I think from that side, we would eventually become something that would support it.
Okay, that's good to know, because like I say, test is an opportunity and maybe a good opportunity to do some initial deployment. But even if you end up getting to a point where, a year or two from now, you say, oh, there's a feature I really want, and the Wind River guys aren't doing it, then you could certainly propose that. And, if it's a networking type feature or something like that, I think the model that we've done, we haven't done it a lot. We're not a great community for getting non-Wind River types contributing, but we have done it a bit in networking. As an example, like Intel has contributed some networking stuff. And the best way to do it is to basically join the particular project team that it has that whatever capability you're thinking of adding in their domain, and try to at least buddy up with some people in that particular project in order to help guide you through the the StarlingX process and getting going on any development if it gets that far. Maybe I'm looking way ahead, but
so I have a question. I joined the call a little late. Did I hear you say that all your connectivity is via satellite?
At the moment, yes, because we do target rural areas. There may be eventually more terrestrial connectivity, so we could use microwave links and other type of terrestrial connectivity. But yeah, pretty much satellite is the way we go. So, and that then poses another additional challenge, which is bandwidth of the satellite and the cost of that capacity of the satellite. So that's why for the, let's say for the later technology like 4G, which require significantly more capacity and bandwidth, there we would definitely look to also use terrestrial links.
Okay. And you're deploying edge nodes based on something on this base station? I see you have like a light cell or and some other products, or are you setting out a separate product for just the edge capacity that communicates with light cell?
No, the light cell is the edge product that we put in the field.
Okay, so you're actually looking to load StarlingX edge nodes on this light cell product and
That's correct.
drive it. Okay, so we've done something similar. All right. So the only problem I see is that you're all satellite and the latency of the links, which I can have a conversation with you outside of, on the email and on Element, so that I can maybe further understand what your deployment looks like other than just edge nodes out there. The problem with latency of communications is the fact that StarlingX currently relies on a standardized TCP/IP stack, where when we deployed Edge, we wanted to use StarlingX on Edge, and we could do it in some sites that didn't have a lot of latency. However, we had to opt in some instances for a secondary Edge capable product that had more streamlined networking. There's a few of them out there when you're talking about Kubernetes edge nodes. And are you part of Open RAN?
Currently, we're not part of Open RAN because it's slightly it's something where we want to go, but in our business model, particularly because of the latency, it's not. It doesn't. Open RAN and let's say Open RAN, satellite and Open RAN don't really go well together because of the distributed architecture and the low latencies they require on the front hole and the mid hole and even on the back hole, as they call it. Those are things that we won't be able to choose. So that's why we stayed a little bit away from that and working on our own, well, not our own, but more traditional architecture.
Okay.
But yeah, latency is I would say one of our biggest challenges because as you say, the TCP/IP is a concern because of the acknowledgements and coming in on time, and then all of a sudden there's everything slows down or comes to a halt. So that's a challenge. But we also see latency as one of the big characteristics that can reduce our capacity on the remote sites as well. So latency is a challenge, but it's one of those challenges that we can't change unless we move to something else.
There's no way to store and forward because of lossless links, other than using satellite legacy TCP/IP stack, which could potentially help.
Yeah, what they do is use accelerators. So they basically run several TCP/IP links and sort of use that as a way of speeding up and helping. But and they also do some trickery where they send acknowledgements in a way so the TCP/IP stays up, but the actual link is being managed slightly differently. So there are some things that we do and that we need to improve, but you're right. That's the bandwidth and the latency is one of the biggest challenges we have.
Yeah, especially with packet loss. Okay. That answered my question. Continue, Greg.
Okay, well, I was just gonna maybe try to wrap it up.
Sorry, who asked that question? Just to be
Scott Hannon.
Oh, Scott. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, very much, Scott.
Yeah, we're also 5G wireless.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Okay, anybody else have any questions, last minute questions for David? Okay, thanks.
Thanks for coming in, David, and sharing. Really helps to kind of see kind of unrecognized community members and the former users out there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. Thanks very much for sharing with us on this.
Ah, pleasure to see the
I'm surprised we
community
haven't heard
in
of
action.
you. I'm surprised we haven't heard of you before. I mean, 2 years with SDX in your lab and haven't heard.
I don't know. You probably heard some of my colleagues. Like I said, some of them have flown the nest because of the challenge we faced.
Okay.
But you probably have heard through other
Yeah,
people.
maybe they've dropped in on some community meetings
Yeah.
and okay. Okay, well,
But
thank you very much again.
yes, no problem. My pleasure.
Okay, as far as agenda items, I don't know if you guys agree. I was thinking of just skipping these, pushing them back. We talk about them in like our weekly meetings all the time. I was thinking of having a 15-minute break. Well, maybe let's say a 10-minute break, and then come back and let's spend 30 minutes on retrospective and maybe 30 minutes on the messaging stuff that there's a good one to talk about. And as kind of a wrap up for the PTG. Does that sound good to everybody?
Um, I'm okay with it, Greg. The thing I disagree with is that the Garrett review stuff is something we talk about all the time. It got tracked. I published my report, and I from the statistics I could see, I was the only one that was active. Um, my slides are posted, and if you guys want to go look at it, go nuts. But I just wanted to push back on the idea that we talk about it all the time because,
Yeah, that's true. We don't.
yep.
So we
I'm
have
okay.
talked about it in the WB. Did you want it? I mean, did you
No,
want?
I'm good. I'm good. I just it was more a challenge to actually discuss it at some point in time.
Okay, well, how about we make a concerted effort to put it on the TSC agenda for one of the following weeks, just so that I agree, we haven't closed this off. You did a review and published something, and I don't think we've really reviewed it in a group and closed it off. Really.
Yep, but
Okay.
I support the motion.
Okay, so let's I'll just make a note that explicitly this. Okay. Okay, sounds good. So let's break for 10 minutes, then we'll come back and do this stuff. Sound good to everybody?
I won't be around when you get back, but thank you very much for your time, and hopefully I'll see you guys on more calls.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks again for participating, David.
No, my pleasure. Thank you guys. Have a good day, guys.
Greg, before we go into retrospective, I just saw that Kevin joined the call. I think he was at the PTG 1 year ago, and he's been using StarlingX, having some challenges with IPv6 and IPv4 kind of things. So maybe we could have another user discussion before going into retrospective.
Sure, sure. Sounds good. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi.
Maybe you could provide some background or just a reminder on what you're using StarlingX for.
Sure. So we are primarily using or eyeing to use StarlingX in internet service provider environments and serving some different applications ranging from DNS servers to radio servers, all applications that for a modern network design for modern ISPs should be served in a distributed fashion to make the networks more resilient, etc. So that's why we were looking at StarlingX, to provide the infrastructure to put the services on. And of course, those providers, especially here in Germany, they all need dual stack. So there's no option to just do IPv6 or just do IPv2. So because we're, for example, also providing endpoints for performance testing, and therefore they needed dual stack, and we weren't able in StarlingX 8 to provide that from the get-go, but we found we built some very, very dirty hacks in the background to make it happen. But we also, it's not that we need IPv4, IPv6 dual stack, but why I'm here today, what I want to give into the discussion is maybe integrating MetalLB or a scenario in which we are actually using the StarlingX nodes to peer with adjacent routers and have the system be aware of BGP peerings and have the system be aware of basically service IP addressing and maybe even things like Anycast, because applications like DNS resolvers are a really good example where we actually want to do Anycast routing, and that's the thing we can do, and that for example Calico in the background together with MetalLB is actually able to do. But it's all of the StarlingX infrastructure, the way of for example configuring interfaces, we can only put IPv4 or IPv6 on an interface, so we had to build a lot of workarounds, like putting VLANs on and have one VLAN for IPv4 and one for IPv6, which was very dirty and not running really well. Yeah, we built this with in the network of one of our customers for basically testing purposes, and we saw that's really cumbersome. So that would be, I think, a very valid direction or something for the use case for StarlingX, of what StarlingX is made for. I think going in that direction and going away from old school networking towards a routing integrated networking, especially for these use cases, would make a lot of sense and would be something that we like. We already saw that for StarlingX 10, IPv4, IPv6 dual stack is already on the roadmap, I saw. But having awareness of BGP peers and of service addressing that I haven't seen anywhere yet, and I wanted to discuss that. Yeah, that would be something that would really help to make StarlingX the optimal platform for the things that we want to build. Because maybe from our standpoint, we are working with a big IT integrator to basically build turnkey ISP systems. So that smaller companies, smaller like utility companies that now want to get into fiber to the home and basically become ISPs, that they have like a turnkey system that we can deliver to them that provides all the different services, provisioning infrastructure, etc. That's required to be a ISP. And yeah.
Yeah. First thing I should say is that I'm not a networking expert by any means. I think we have a few networking types on the call. So we can have a bit of a discussion. I suspect that you might get a better discussion by actually going to the networking project team meeting, but you can certainly discuss a bit here. My only comment on the BGP peering stuff is that I believe that, although I don't think it's documented all anywhere, I believe that you can set up like Calico to do that BGP peering. But
yeah, you can, and we did. But there is like from the Starlink, of course it would be nice, especially then for our customers, if in the configuration in Horizon, if you would actually have UI or APIs say, okay, add a new BGP peer. Yeah. That's not there, but that's something that we can work around with interfacing directly with Calico. But now let me think. There were a couple problems that we had with IP addressing, etc. when we were doing that.
I'm assuming, the Calico BGP peering that you do now is only on a single stack, not a dual stack.
Well, through some hacks we activated dual stack in Kubernetes. We then configured some links IPv4 and some links IPv6 to have both, and then we added BGP peerings on IPv4 and IPv6 to make things happen. And then we used Metal LB in conjunction with Calico to also have then service IP addresses, so that we can say, okay, the service should have this IP and it should be announced via BGP to your BGP peers, so it becomes reachable. And I think the first thing even is that IP forwarding isn't even activated by default on StarlingX nodes. So we needed to inject some dirty scripts at some point that did some enable IP forwarding, and also what we did is put loopback addresses that we needed. That's also something that wasn't possible, but that you usually have.
Okay.
And we had problems with we needed the service addresses to be pingable and to answer to ping, which also did not work. So
okay, yeah, like I don't know if anybody here can jump in with any questions, but yeah, like I said, I'm not a networking expert, so to me it sounds like kind of we need ideally need yourself to come to a networking project team meeting and actually maybe need to schedule it almost to make sure that all of our networking experts are there and kind of flush out kind of what the requirements are that you're looking for, because it sounds like there's like half a dozen or more different requirements related to routing and BGP peering and stuff like that that you're looking for, and some of the things you've been talking about, like dual stack and stuff like that, are things that there's other users in StarlingX that are wanting that as well, right? Because we've got some already
also
storyboards.
Now that I think of it, there's also there are Calico default security policies, I think, which aren't there for IPv6. So if we had actually one server quite quick after we set it up, it was hijacked because there was some, I think it was database that did have some security problem, and the integrated automatic security profiles weren't enabled for IPv6. So that's something that should look at.
Okay.
And yeah, the last point, of course, that I also think I talked about the last time I was here was application delivery with subclouds. As from what we've read and how we thought StarlingX would work, we expected that we could deploy an application like centrally and have it being automatically pushed out to all the subclouds, and maybe have some control from the central side around which applications get deployed where and in what fashion. And then when we actually deployed it and tested it, we thought, oh no, we were wrong. We had to go to every subcloud manually and deploy applications manually there. Is that something that's being worked on or on the roadmap to have that in a central fashion, to deploy apps centrally and have StarlingX intelligence basically push it out to the subclouds and configure it and work with that? Or is that not?
We've talked a bit about it, but not in any detail. We were kind of, to be honest, we were sort of watching the I forget what it's called, the Federated Kubernetes Working Group.
Yeah.
In order to potentially eventually adopt the federated Kubernetes in our distributed cloud environment. But I believe that federated Kubernetes group has kind of, been abandoned just because I think there was really only one or two primary contributors and they left. And so I think that working group doesn't exist anymore. So we haven't been doing anything like focusing on that area. It's kind of on a wish list of things to look at, but it's not on our, there's not any other users that are explicitly asking for this right now, although I completely understand the request. Like it makes sense that could be a deployment model that you'd want to do.
Yeah, if I look a couple of lines up, there is the plan for another one to deploy like 10,000 sites, and I think in such environments, in such scenarios, that would be a hugely valuable thing to not then have to manage applications on every site. Like,
yeah, I know some of our users kind of have some homebrew orchestration capabilities, through Ansible and stuff like that. But I've never really looked at it in detail, and but yeah, like I say, I mean, it makes total sense to have this type of capability. But yeah, it hasn't kind of got into a storyboard yet or anything like that. Just because the current users either have some other way of doing it or they don't need it. I'm not sure. But yeah, no, it's good to hear that feedback, because like I say, it still is on the wish list of things that we could be looking at. So it's good to hear that there are some actual use cases for that.
Kevin, do you have the availability to work with the community to get any of the items that we just talked about implemented upstream? To contribute some of the implementation in the areas that are crucial for you.
Possibly, yes. What kind of yeah, when we were looking at how we could get DualStack quickly to work, we also looked at how we could get DualStack correctly to work, but diving into the complexities of how the whole boot or bootstrap process works with system service, then running Puppet, then it was very, very complicated and very intransparent for us to really find where would we need to hook in, what would we need to change, how would we work or modify that system in a way that's actually valid to give back upstream. Because the way we did this is absolutely nothing. I wouldn't even show this in this round. And it stemmed from necessity to work very, very dirtily, but it has absolutely no value to push or to give that upstream. But instead, if there was more, or if we could get more guidance in what be needed specifically in this scenario or in this context, and how StarlingX is being built, what were the points that needed to work on and would be needed to implement to get some work done in this fashion, I can definitely see having some developer resources on our side do that and also give that back upstream, because we actually have no interest in basically managing a fork to realize these things, but we definitely need to have those. There's no option that we can proceed without having BGP peering and having dual stack functionality and using StarlingX. So
yeah, I think like I understand your comment about, there's a lot of complexities in, bootstrapping and puppet config and that sort of thing. I think the next steps in looking at your requirements would be, like I suggested, almost kind of booking a design level discussion with the StarlingX networking project team, and get the 2 or 3 key network experts for StarlingX to kind of just brainstorm with you on understanding the requirements, and then brainstorm on how could this be done in StarlingX, and then after we have kind of like a straw man view of how we might do it, then we could
yeah, I'm
plan.
definitely open to doing that, to contributing in that sense. If it's something that fits the roadmap for where things should go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the things that you're talking about, I think are things that, we'd be interested in adding to StarlingX. So, yeah, definitely worth talking about.
There was also, probably back when I did the WireGuard implementation on Pre-6, an implementation of Bird for OSPF and BGP from the host. So I'm wondering if there's an alternative way to achieve what you're looking to do without actually having to manipulate Calico and Middle LB, because we knew at one point in time there was session conflict between the two. So we opted to use Bird, which is the BGP OSPF routing daemon. And we had OSPF and BGP from the hosts all the way out to the core.
Yeah. What I think there are some different aspects to it, because we don't really, or in this case, we didn't need BGP specifically to receive routing information, which is a case that will happen also, but have this different concept of providing a service that is tied to a specific IP address that's being announced from the node. Yeah,
Okay.
and that requires this kind of integration, but MetalLB and Calico work together in that way and are designed to. So I don't know where the conflict stems from, or if that's actually old news, because there has been
It may
a
be
lot
old news
of
because
development.
it's been some time since we did the implementation of WireGuard. Probably 2 years.
Yeah, so maybe it's just not a problem anymore, and we are running it, and it works, and also in other contexts we are using it in a non-StarlingX context, and it works quite well. So I think that it is the better way to go.
Yeah, we enabled Calico and WireGuard for encryption between pods and hosts.
Makes sense.
Continue, Greg.
Okay, I was just making a note about, next steps. I think here would be to kind of set up a design level brainstorming with the SDX networking team. That's a link to the networking team's meeting. I think
The next meeting is on April 25th.
Is it every other week?
Yes.
Okay. Other week, and you said next one is April 25th?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, if it's bi-weekly, shouldn't then April 11 also be?
No, because it was canceled for the PTG.
Ah, okay. Yeah, well, then April 21st is fine, and I will see that I will attend that and go back through my notes from the implementation that we did to maybe a bit better prepared to discuss how we would like things to work.
Can I also suggest that maybe you send an email to the mailing list, just recapturing some of the topics so that, and just maybe in the title say attention networking team or something like that. I can also put the name of or I'll put in the chat here the TL, the Stephen Webster, windriver.com. Oops. Just so that he has a bit, I don't see him here. So he can have a bit of a heads up that, like, just get a bit of background on the discussions.
Is he on the mailing list, or should I include him extra?
He is on the mailing list.
Okay. Okay.
And then
I think that's a good idea.
we can definitely, I think within that forum, there definitely can be a discussion on what is planned for the dual stack support. Now, I know you have bigger topics, so that I think will require an interactive discussion because there isn't anything specific on the roadmap as far as I know. But I think this would be the right forum to discuss.
So it's not on the roadmap yet.
Okay. So currently on the roadmap, I that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. So if I saw right, different question. The StarlingX 9 has an updated DPDK, which now supports E810X. Is that correct?
StarlingX does not package DPDK specifically. So, if somebody's using DPDK, it would be in the context of a containerized application or such. But there is the Linux drivers for the E810 are integrated in StarlingX, yes.
Oh, I think the Open vSwitch is linked against the version of DPDK, which makes specific network adapters being able to be used as accelerated adapters or not. And therefore, well, E810s were not supported before in StarlingX 8. So, but I don't know where I saw it. I saw things about E810 now being supported specifically with StarlingX 9. So that's why I'm asking, because we have quite a lot of these adapters and we're quite bummed out that we couldn't use acceleration features.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the E810, my understanding is that they are supported in StarlingX 9 for sure. I don't think I'm the best to discuss the technical details around how they're built in the context of DPDK, but that can be a question you can ask either to the mailing list if you need a quicker question answer, or like again, the networking team would be able to answer like in more detail. I just don't I don't want to share information that is not accurate.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Kevin? I think this was a good discussion. I think you got a bunch of good ideas for networking to look at. Okay, thanks very much, Kevin, for joining.
Thank you.
And sharing. Okay. The last two items that we had the messaging exercise, a retrospective. Any preference on what order we do these? Do you want to talk about the messaging stuff first, Ildiko, or?
I was just about to suggest to maybe start with retrospective if there's anything that comes up that could feed into the messaging one, but I'm good either way.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with doing the retrospective first. Okay. So I'm not good at doing these facilitating of retrospectives, but I think typically these retrospectives go generally, what did we do well, what did we not do well, and how can we improve? So I'll just open it up for comments, I guess, initially on, for example, what did we do well? Anything well? Or...
We got a release out the door.
Exactly.
Congratulations again to the community, and thank you all for the hard work.
I think that was officially released on Friday last week, or can't remember exactly.
It was announced on the mailing list yesterday.
Yeah, I think officially probably yesterday, Greg, once the artifacts were posted.
Did we update the website link?
I'm getting there. Yes, the official, like the big splash announcement is not out yet. We are working on finalizing one last quote in the press release, and then it will go out as well.
Yeah. Any other comments on things we're doing well? I think we've improved on our community meetings. I think can't remember if it was last PTG or the one before that we commented that a lot of a lot of the project level meetings were not necessarily happening, and I think, well, not necessarily happening and or not necessarily issuing minutes so people could follow even if they didn't attend. And I've noticed that that's much better. now. I'm seeing a lot of minutes from the various projects. Anything else?
A whole lot of different versions of Kubernetes that we had to work through.
How many versions of Kubernetes did XCX9 introduce?
124, 125, 126, 127. So 4 versions. With some pretty significant changes to the API in the middle there. 125 especially and 127 both introduced some incompatibilities that had to be dealt with.
And we got OpenStack updated, correct?
Yes, we did. That was a big thing. Yeah. Okay. Typically the more popular question. Stuff we didn't do well.
Documentation.
Jason. Any specifics?
Yeah, specifically the build documentation and updating certain aspects of the install guide, which I've been going through the past 3 days, and I will file my findings.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott, it would be appreciated if you could raise any launchpad bugs if you find anything, and that
Yeah.
way we can surely attend to it.
I do now that I'm getting back into the swing of
Yeah,
being
perfect.
hands-on more.
Thank you very much.
And the other thing you actually, one thing I wanted to make sure, Scott, was that you're reviewing these, right? Not these.
No, I don't use virtual environments. I'm reviewing on bare metal.
Okay, good. Because these are outdated and eventually going to be removed. Where these are more updated, and I believe now they are bare metal and virtual. We just haven't removed the old virtual ones yet. Like there's tabs,
Okay.
these things now. I just wanted to make sure you're looking at the right things. Okay, that's good. What's going on with the build documentation though? Like this is for building ISO and or patches, right?
It's still based on sent to us.
I know,
Yeah.
but I know you were going to follow up with Scott Little.
Yep.
It's
My guy's coming back from holiday on Friday, and we're going to draft a letter, and I'm going to get my guy on chat, and we're going to ping Scott Little directly and ask him if we can have an hour of his time to walk us through this.
I still remember some time ago I tried to build a build system that basically that's only I think the third stage to have your own to have your own version that you can patch. Yeah, and there was a lot of conflicting and old and new information
Yep.
on different sites and wikis, etc. And basically nothing of it really worked. So what I would suggest in jumping to the point how we can improve this, and I would be willing to help, is that when there is like the commitment that this is the build guide, yeah, that for each version, I would just run through it once, do it, and see without prior knowledge or anything, is everything that is required to do and required to have actually in the build guide, and makes it actually possible to set up a build system that works. Because I got to the point where I was building in ISO, but I couldn't install from it. And then I needed to do other things. So
Okay, that's good. Yeah, no, that'd be good. So maybe Scott, you can include Kevin in any kind of discussions you're having with Scott.
Okay.
Do we still have a build meeting that could be utilized?
Yes, we do. Find the build meeting.
We also have a room on Matrix, so that's another place.
Yeah, Matrix was also done pretty well. It's been somewhat useful.
With regards to Matrix, I would love to see more people active there. When there are questions popping up, at least in the general room, there the answers are not really in a timely manner, I would say. I'm trying to raise awareness when they come in, but it would be nice if others were looking at them a bit more frequently as well. And just keep utilizing the tool in general would be nice.
And documentation, matrix participation. Anything to do with the stuff that Steve was going to talk about, but I wouldn't let him, like Garrett reviews and stuff.
Are you just trolling me now?
Well, I imagine there was, I can't remember the exact issue around the Garrett reviews, but there was an issue that resulted in you going away and investigating the Garrett reviews. I can't remember what the details were of it.
Including everybody in the review.
So there were, let's see, so the thing what we didn't do well with regard to that is well, that's hard to say.
I know there were some complaints about kind of, I think maybe what Scott was just trying to say was, I think there were some complaints initially about there was too many people on the reviews.
Yeah, there were a lot of complaints. That was one of the complaints. But the what that translated to was me suggesting some changes of behaviors. Okay. So it wasn't just that there were two. I'm trying to separate. The reason I'm hesitating is I'm trying to separate what was stated and what turned out to be fact, if you will. Okay. So managing reviewers is not something the number of reviewers or turns out to be a bit of a problem, but best practices that I could find, for example, and just general policies around Garrett don't limit the number of reviewers. People are encouraged to be reviewers. Okay. But, right, were the reviews helpful? Were the +2s engaging? Were they able to use those reviews to help them? Right. So those are the whole review pipeline and communication between the request submitter and the review set just was not functioning properly. All right. And I would say very specifically in the case of one partner, we were trying to onboard their equipment who was very engaged and at the center of all this, so, you know, at least the thing that brought it to a head. I think we lost an opportunity to onboard a community member to take on some more work. I think they would have been more than happy to had the experience been different.
Yeah, what wasn't kind of one of the main problems, just that reviews were taking forever to close and merge?
That I would say, so I'm making a distinction between observation, symptom, and root cause. Okay, so the problem was stated as they were taking too long. What was root cause? The +2s are funneled through, I would say, very few people. All right. And that those few people didn't have a reviewer set that provided review and reviewed information that was helpful to them. Right. There was just a +1. All right. Well, what is there a write-up around your review that a core reviewer could use to give it a +2? Right. So there's a bunch of stuff like that. Right. So right. And
so I mean, by nature, there are a relatively small number of core reviewers in most of the repos, just because in order to be a core, you need to have a certain amount of experience.
And Chris, it was each of those repos. You know, I went and dug in.
Yep.
And there's a smaller set of names that are the core reviewers for multiple, if not several repos.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, it all kind of converges down to, it's not an uncommon thing. You're absolutely right. And I would not, in my assessment, I would not lay any blame on the core reviewers for being late or unresponsive. My assessment is that they weren't getting the support from reviewers or support from the submitters that would help them give a +2. And I think what was happening, then I step back now to more what's observed. What would be observed is there was preferential treatment given to some requests and others ignored, when the reality is more that the ones that were perceived as preferential, there was already a trust relationship between the reviewers and the core reviewers, which it all kind of boils down to that in the end, right? So what I propose I don't know, three or four things in my write-up to go and pursue to address some of this. Just to get it on the record, I guess. I could be smug and say, go read my report, but
I was just gonna say that. that I didn't let you present.
no, let's see here. Yeah, I can present. It's pretty short.
Okay, stop sharing.
Against my better judgment. Let's see, let's get that one off. Gotta clear up here. Good job trolling me. All right, so we're having this conversation absent of everything up to it. All right. But just some possible actions, and then I have a little more detailed one here, but just document how many +1 reviews are needed, not the reviewers that, right? So how many +1 reviews should something have? Right.
The problem is that it's not actually a simple answer because it depends who's giving the +1.
Exactly. So this isn't in isolation, Chris. All right. So and these are possible actions. These aren't, it's like how simple do you want to make it, or how thorough do you want to make it, right?
But it also depends on your goals, though, Steve. Like the core reviewer should be ensuring direction, right? To make sure that the changes aren't drastically outside the envelope of where you want to go. And the +1s are really the technical review. They're the people that have really dug into the code and ensured that the commit logs and the task and everything else is saying the same thing as what the code changes are actually doing. And in that, if you look at it that way, this is why I always propose that the minimum you want is 2. You have 1 core reviewer to check on that direction, and you have the +1 to check on the technical. And then obviously you're going to have testing and other things that will back up the change as far as its technical viability, right? So it's the +2, the 2 core reviewers I really struggle with, because why do you need to have 2 people checking the direction?
So in practice, we have a shortage of technical experts that are giving the +1s. And so in practice, one of the cores is often doing that technical thing. There are also quite a few people where they jump on a review and give a +1 with no comments.
Bingo.
As just sort of a thumbs up, this looks good, but it's not actually super meaningful if that person is not really an expert in the area. It basically boils down to, I don't see anything blatantly obviously wrong with this. And so I totally agree. If you have a +1 from somebody who is a subject matter expert, then after that, sure, 1 core is probably fine. But if you don't have that +1 from the subject matter expert, then it becomes a little trickier. And so that's where the 2+2s really come into play.
Oh yeah, there is reputational. Like, people will +1 and then the change will cause a problem. And that you have to deal with that. Like, that's whether you're in a community or a paid position, you should not be passing something if it's not actually viable. But the other part to it is, when you have too many reviewers, you might notice when I review something, I often, if I'm the first to review, then I'll continue with any updates to that
Yeah.
review. But if I'm not the first to review, so if you know, Chris or yeah, any of you jump on, I'll let you continue with the review until your comments are resolved.
Sure.
Because that you know, yes, I can add a little bit of value, but if your comments are going to cause structural changes to the patch, there's not much value in me speaking up until that's settled down.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the problem is you get into kind of a committee mode, and that's almost worse than having people do a +1, because they're just hiding behind the shadows of others.
Right, and I think the dynamic that I saw when I was digging through this was not that there was there was a lot of that kind of activity. It was more, there was a lot of silence, right? So
Well, that's the other part of the committee, is everyone's waiting for the others to jump first.
Yep.
Oh, look, there's 5 people on here. Oh, I don't need to look at it today because one of the other 4 people will do it.
And nobody does it. So
Exactly. And the problem is when you go into committee, as you know, you end up with a beige building. Nobody takes accountability. This is why it is. I agree. It's an optimization problem, but I always lean towards the less, because then that way it's more, the responsibilities are more set in stone, and you have to take your responsibilities to heart. Otherwise, you have nowhere to hide. If you +1 something and there was a blatant code issue, then that should be shown that you know, maybe you missed it on purpose. Maybe you didn't. That happens. You know, even the best of us will miss things. But at least if you do get a trend of that, then you got an issue.
So right. what I would like to see, and I'm not sure how this works for how we should make it work for community people, but it would be good to get somebody who is familiar with that code, like somebody who has touched similar code recently, to take a look at it and basically do a sanity check before trying to get the attention of the core reviewers. And there's a lot of times where code is just pushed up and immediately they're asking for attention from the core reviewers before anybody else has looked at it. And I think it'd be better to get somebody else on the team to look at it first before bringing in the core reviewers.
So hold on to that thought. I think that's in my rules of the road. Right. I think the healthier conversation is really, I mean, this is great. Thanks for the engagement. I think there's something broader that we ought to be trying to do. So let me kind of jump to that if I can.
I wanted to add a quick comment before you do that, just to the conversation that just happened, if that's okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to say, in terms of like the +1s and the +2s, like encouraging people to do reviews, whether or not they a subject matter expert yet, is a great way to get people up to speed, to like new contributors who may not be an expert to any parts of StarlingX or that particular part where they have their interest in. But encouraging everyone who has an interest in the project to do reviews
Absolutely.
is a great way for them to learn. And having their +1s is also great information. The more +1s you have, the more chances are that at least the basic coding issues are caught, and the patch itself is solid enough, whether or not it fully meets the technical direction that it was supposed to cover. An example to the 2 core reviewer rule is OpenStack, where there is like at least 2 cores should look at a patch before it gets approved. It does have historical reasons of why the community is doing it that way. In my personal opinion, it's great to have 2 people with merge powers to take a look at the patch and make sure that it merges. It's especially great when we have a diverse community, so that just to make sure that the patch looks like it is good to go from multiple perspectives, and just in general being able to double check that what one person saw is good. at least another
That does raise it.
opinion.
It does raise an interesting point, though, Ildiko. Like I was on a call with somebody that was claiming that Linux uses mailing lists because that's the best they can do, and my feeling is that's bullshit basically because Linux made Git. If we need to have a tool to do something that would be better than a mailing list, then one would be created. One of the challenges with using tools that aren't mailing lists, because basically what happens with the mailing lists is people subscribe, and then if somebody sees something that they want to contribute to, it's easier because it's as long as they're subscribed, they'll see everything. So there's sort of a difference between a +1 that just comes from organically as opposed to a +1 that's being added as a reviewer. And that has to be, I think you have to recognize that part of the problem, if people aren't seeking reviews and they don't know where to go look to see where there's open reviews, then they're not going to be contributing. And this is why Linux continues to use mailing lists, because it's an easy technology for people to subscribe, and once they're subscribed, they get the emails letting them know that something's out for review. So with Garrett, it is a little bit hidden, as to go find which reviews are open, which might be of interest for me as somebody joining, for instance, or for a hypothetical, where to find something that I might be able to contribute a +1 to. But yeah, these discussions are common throughout all projects, and again, I do tend to lead toward the mailing list just because the biggest open source project in the world uses it successfully and on purpose. And when you use tools like Garrett and that, sometimes the organic nature of things tends to be eroded to a certain extent.
I mean, Garrett does provide a functionality to watch projects, to watch repos. So it does send you a notification whenever a new review is created. If that would be useful to the community, and I know that will probably it might be covered by Steve later, but if that's useful, I'm happy to send out some reminders for people that, hey, if you're new, you can find the new reviews here and there. Make sure you subscribe, watch the repos that you're interested in, yada yada yada, just to give people reminders if that's useful.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay, cool. I'll do
And
that.
thanks for bringing that up, because yeah, you're on the money when you're thinking about it in that way.
So yeah, we do have the tool, and we might not use it to the full extent, and I'm happy to remind people to that.
Yeah, and then we can do things like the next one, Steve can dig through the metrics and see if there's actually anyone subscribing, and if there aren't, then then we can, then I think that shows that we're doing maybe something not correctly to get people to be sort of jumping on reviews on their own accord, as opposed to having to be called out to be on a review.
The trolling continues.
Always.
No, you like metrics, Steve, so I'm not trolling. I thought I was feeding into your strong point there.
I like results. Metrics get you results. How's that? So thanks. So the last thing on this page that I don't cover on the other one is there wasn't really a process that I could find. You could argue that, yeah, there's an organic one. If anybody cares, they can do something. But I think having some kind of back to Mark's point, right? A measure of our performance around the process of getting reviews and code accepted would be helpful, right? And I would encourage it to be around the process, not individual performance. As I kind of dug into this, I got a lot of I'll say resistance, because I think people felt that they were being monitored and questioned, and everybody's busy, right? So I think setting up some kind of performance monitoring capability would be great, and then have a way to have some kind of governance. I'm not thinking any heavy duty, but there's nowhere to go right now where somebody or a group of somebodies can help unstuck any of these. And there were some that were way old, and people, still trying to get their reviews, but nothing was happening. So I think those putting something like that in place should be considered. And I'm not volunteering to do that, Mark.
So technically speaking, if reviews are taking forever, then that's actually the core reviewers not living up to the expectations of what they're supposed to be doing, which is unfortunate because the core reviewers should actually be keeping an eye on that sort of thing.
Yeah, is that stated anywhere? I could not find crisp rules anywhere for, and I don't mean just in StarlingX. I looked at OpenStack. I looked out in the broader space. I could not find codified responsibilities.
So if I can, here, I can stick this in. I'll put it in the chat. So this is old. This is Okada, but this is the OpenStack core reviewers documentation.
Right, and so, yep, they're responsible for reviewing them actively and consistently. If something's stuck, right, I think that's where it kind of ends.
Well, it depends. Is it stuck because the person committing it is unwilling to make the changes that are being asked for, or is it not getting re-reviewed in a timely fashion? So if the core reviewers are saying this is what you have to do to get it merged, and the person submitting the code doesn't do that, that's sort of one scenario, and I think that's just, I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
If they're not getting re-reviewed after changes are being made, then I would say that's the cores are not living up to their end of the bargain.
And
but again, it should be, in an ideal world, there should be subject matter experts taking a look at it.
Correct.
Before it even goes to the cores.
Right. But I think that expectation, Chris, I'm not pushing back. It's not crisply codified anywhere.
Yep.
So
yeah, I agree it's not taught anywhere, but it's certainly the impression I've had as, like, even working in some of the real OpenStack groups, right? Like, I remember attending a Nova PTG where the core reviewers weren't even accepting that a new feature could be done in the release because they wouldn't have time to review that release, that feature's content. So yeah, I think there is an expectation that if you're a core and if this feature has been accepted for a release, then you got a responsibility to do the review.
Right. So I started the rules of the road as an example. I didn't want to be heavy-handed in the title, but it really is kind of a roles and responsibility and etiquette kind of list that I would encourage, to be kind of evolved and codified from a full community perspective. So what are the responsibilities, not just a responsibility, but Chris was talking about, really there's an accountability there to to actually get reviews completed or closed, right? Whether code gets accepted or not. And Greg, there's an accountability for, what you articulated there, for shepherding reviews through for functionality that's supposed to be in a release, right? I think that kind of stuff needs to get codified for this particular community. And kind of the tenor I saw, kind of going through all the documentation, just awesome reading, by the way, was more of the pipeline pipelines were described, but the conversation element of it wasn't really described very well. Kind of what's the interaction, the expectation, what's the turnaround time, in these conversations, and that's really what they're supposed to be, right? Is there a kind of, in the worst case, a conversation? In the best case, it's an ask and an accept, where there's not much more of a conversation. So I think, just drive the point home, RACIs for change owners and reviewers, and kind of etiquette for how the conversation's supposed to happen on both sides. I think that's what I was trying to capture here. And I just grabbed some stuff that seemed to be best practice across the industry, just to get the conversation going. But
I put another link in the chat.
You sent another link in the chat?
Yep.
So, Chris, I am, just so we're clear, I am not a subject matter expert on this stuff. So.
No, but I just included what we have as far as the StarlingX documentation.
Yep.
So that's this as far as around code reviews. So this is the official StarlingX code submission guide.
Yep. And this is included in my bibliography.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, this is about as formal as it gets as far as StarlingX goes.
Which would you say is sufficient?
So I don't know. It's as much as a lot of open source projects have. You could argue how much we want to nail down procedures and expectations. Probably it could be expanded.
Yeah, so for as much as I guess I'll wear the cloak of wanting data and statistics and processes. I didn't take this one on because I thought it was interesting. There was a problem, right? And that I was working on, they got caught up in this and manifested itself in this. So to the degree that that problem gets solved and doesn't recur again, I think there's an opportunity here to evolve the level of clarity and completeness around the process, right? I don't like it. I don't like process for process sake, but there was, we as a community had an opportunity to onboard somebody, and I think onboard in a very big way that didn't happen because it kind of got caught up in reviews. So I agree with you. We have to decide, as you called it, how heavy-handed we want to be, but the existing stuff failed us as a community. And so that's where my mindset is, Chris.
I think some of the baseline of the challenge is kind of, I don't know, push-pull model sort of thing. Maybe that's not the best way to describe it, but what I mean is that we have similar challenges with both the mailing list, the reviews, matrix to some extent, where if you look at the mailing list, people are on the mailing list in the community, but sometimes you have to send emails to people directly because they may or may not watch the mailing list. And even when a topic is relevant for them or they have the input, you have to specifically reach out to the person directly or include their email directly on top of the mailing list, which they are, by the way, subscribed to. And the reviews are similar in the sense that, at least my impression was at a time, especially when this topic came up, was that at least in some project teams, the preference is to have people added to reviews when someone suspects that they have the most knowledge in the area, so they look at it, as opposed to having the core team as well as the wider, bigger project team without the merge powers watch the repos and look at every review that came in, because if people are looking at reviews, you don't have to add people specifically. So to me, it feels like that we have a social challenge in terms of people proactively looking at things without being poked directly. And I think that applies outside of the context of reviews. And it looks like from like what Steve put together that we might need some processes in place to change this culture, because it feels like that kind of everyone wants the culture to be changed, and having people not adding a ton of people to a review just to make sure that someone actually looks at it. Does this resonate with others on the call too, or is it only my observation?
It would be consistent with what I saw when I was digging through the data and interviewing people. And I did interview many. So I'm not advocating I guess to respond to Chris's sentiment, it's why I call them rules of the road rather than here's how you have to do it. I think there's a simple way of making a lot of progress here. And what I wrote doesn't necessarily have to be what the rules of the road are. But I think it would be helpful. I think it would have addressed the challenge that got me engaged in this to begin with. So if
there's also like we can define what the expectations are, but then there's also the separate issue of actually getting people to live up to those expectations.
Yep. And that's why that other thing there about how to get things unstuck, review processes, measure processes, process performance, and rather than targeting people, I think would be a good idea. And I think that Bitergia has some ways of looking at processes like this that would be helpful. And they are, I don't know what the right word is, Ildiko, but a sponsor, a partner with Open Infra and us, right? And so we might be able to use tools and processes to produce a dashboard, if you will, with things that are already at hand.
I mean, the dashboard already exists. Let me know if the information that you're looking for is not on it.
Yeah, exactly right. I think there's probably a cut of it that would be helpful, but Chris, you're absolutely right. There's no I don't know. I don't want to say enforcement, but no accountability, right?
Does anyone have a view on in terms of what kind of help do you need to change the culture to what would make this community work more efficiently, that would give people a better experience? Because
One thing that has come up is trying to make it simpler in Garrett to highlight like the areas that you want to keep track of. So it's not immediately obvious to people that are new to Garrett how to say, you know, I want my dashboard to show commits all of the incoming reviews in these repositories. You have to kind of go down and dig into the guts of it to put that together.
And it wasn't fun.
Okay. Okay, that's a good one. What else?
I mean, I think fundamentally it's going to boil down to A, making it easy to see what reviews are outstanding, and B, just getting people to take the time to do those reviews.
Yeah, we almost need some way for, you know, core reviewers to be able to plan, you know, what review effort they're going to have, because certainly as a core reviewer, I don't want to be spending, I mean,
So I know that
don't want to
like
be spending 100% of my time reviewing.
in some groups, I have worked with some open source projects where it pretty much is, if you're a core reviewer, you're expected to be pretty much doing that and nothing else. I've done others where it's like not quite to that extent, but core reviewers are generally not doing as much actual code development. I do know that some of the core reviewers that I work with on StarlingX do have like a certain set time that they dedicate towards reviews. And so they build it into their schedule, like I'm going to do this much reviews per day kind of thing, or spend this much time reviewing per day.
So
I almost think that's the you know, guidelines you almost need to give core reviewers, is that, you know, we got to respect them. That I think there maybe are some core reviewers that do almost 100% reviewing in StarlingX, but I think there's majority of them, it's a part-time thing. And then I think we need to provide some guidelines around how you budget your time to, you know, don't go weeks without reviewing it. And some guidelines on, you know, don't keep avoiding the extra large review and doing all the small ones first.
Well, so that's
you
one thing.
got
As a
this
core
one.
reviewer, I have gone in and said this review is too big, just break it up.
Yeah, I mean that's allowed, but I mean, just, you know, don't avoid reviewing any specific review, you know, for an indefinite amount of time. I think there's
Yeah,
kind of
it's really hard for some things, because there's some reviews where it's like, I know that this one review is going to take like 4 hours of my time.
Yeah.
And so if I don't have a 4-hour chunk, I can't review it.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And so it's like, and so there are scenarios where it's just like, if you want this to get looked at faster, break it up into smaller pieces.
Yeah, I think it's something along these lines, that I think that in some I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think in some cases, the reason these reviews aren't happening is poor time management on the core reviewers.
Well, I didn't run into that, but in either my data gathering or my interviews, but there were two things that I was in this space, Greg. I think you're pulling the right thread, but maybe not getting to necessarily the right conclusion. There were two things that were very consistent that I got. One was it would help me as a core reviewer if I could get access to the test environment, right, where you developed. Okay. So that's I don't think that's always part of what is accessible to a reviewer, a core reviewer. But that was consistent. Get access to the test environment. And the other one, and this one's worth kind of peeling back to see what specifics you could do. But the other consistent theme was there is a trust relationship between core reviewers and reviewers. And so, you don't trust, you moderately trust, their weaknesses, or they're great, right? So it's not just a matter of time management from the core reviewer part. I think there's help that the core reviewers could get from reviewers, and maybe there's setting up a standard for what a reviewer should report back on. Here's what I did, here's what I didn't do, here's the test environment, boom, that 4-hour time slot that Chris is looking for might just have dropped to an hour or two.
So it should not be up to reviewers to be testing code.
No, this was give you access to their environment to test.
No, but the reviewers should not be testing. All of the testing should be done by the person submitting the code, and it should be documented in the commit message what testing has been done and what the results were.
Okay. So that's not what was shared with me, but that's I'm not arguing, Chris. It's just what was shared.
Yeah, so like if we so if we look at typical commit messages in StarlingX, it will show what the test plan is. So we can make sure that that's documented here, but generally the commit messages in StarlingX will be like, this is the change, this is why it's needed, this is what's being done, and here's some stuff that's not obvious, and here's the testing that I've done under these environments, and here's the results. And so the core reviewer ideally should be able to look at the commit message and not need any other context. And the core reviewer should not be testing, because that just takes way more time. It is not reasonable to expect a core reviewer to build a load and actually go off and make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. That should be up to the person submitting the code to show that the code does what it's supposed to.
I do agree and disagree to what you're saying. I mean, I'm not saying that a core reviewer should have the responsibility to test the patch. A reviewer should have the ability to test the patch, though.
Yes.
Like, I personally did have a part of my career when I was a core reviewer, and I was a reviewer before I became core. And one of the great tactics is to be able to run at least the unit and functional tests locally. And I also did, like in an OpenStack environment, it was easy enough to spin it up, apply the code, and see if it actually does what everyone claims it does. And number of times the actual test coverage that was added was not covering the code changes that were added, and all the combination of things that were not going as the commit message was suggesting, as the review was suggesting, as the code change was sort of suggesting. Sometimes it's easy to catch it if you're able to test. So I agree that for a core, it should not be mandatory to test every single patch. But if there is any core or non-core reviewer who would like to be able to test, they should be.
Yep, agreed. But the primary onus for demonstrating that the code does what it's supposed to do should be on the person submitting the code.
100%. Yes, I agree to that. Yeah. If there's anything in what we are discussing that's not documented yet in terms of any good practice that people have a good experience with in terms of time management, or if the commit messages are not sufficiently informative enough, that could be something that we can sort of easily address.
Actually, here, so if I share my screen here, so this is the code submission guidelines for StarlingX, and this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about, where the commit message has a test plan section with the results of the testing. And so it actually is currently documented that this is what's expected.
And where that failed us is somewhere in the process. So I'll get it wrong, Chris, probably here, right? So just go with me here.
Yep.
We had a new community member that wanted to do those tests, but couldn't set up a test environment to replicate like an install or a build, right? And so they had no way of providing that kind of information. And so there's where, at least that's how I got engaged, right? So they were trying to make changes to be able to submit a request just like that. So I'm gonna time out here, but I guess you know, had this been my discussion session, I still think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think there's low-hanging fruit, and the starting point might be to replace what I have written in the rules of the road, and for there to be an ongoing, active, committed to discussion to populate that rules of the road. Like, what are the expectations of the roles that we have, both roles? What makes for a good review, right? So because I think that would be helpful, and I'm going to pick on Greg for a moment, because it's really easy just to go, Chris, you're a core reviewer and you got a time management problem, go fix that, right? And the work I did not indicate that that was the case, but it's real easy to make that leap. So I think really just kind of taking this rules of the road notion and just revisiting it, and maybe start populating with some of the topics that were in the conversation today. Personally, I think would be a good start.
Yeah, I captured a few things on the discussion with respect to how to improve. But yeah, I agree with that. We probably need to, you know, review and update your rules of the road in detail in another meeting. Yeah, to try to come up with, you know, what are some conventions that will improve the situation.
Yep. Yep. And I would steer away from making it heavy-handed, like Chris said, because there is a level of just organic behavior that's both good and bad, and being heavy-handed isn't going to help. So,
Okay.
all right, I've timed out. So
Yeah, I
We'll
don't know what other people have with respect to schedule. I have another 25 minutes that I can go, but I don't know, do we I know we didn't discuss all the how to improves on the retrospective. Do we maybe we put that on the schedule for some of our community meetings to kind of budget some time for that?
yeah, and my the slides don't have it all. I think my email has the whole bibliography of where I went and looked and everything else, right? So you could use it as reference material if need be.
Okay.
I posted the slides to the Google Drive.
Okay. Ildiko, did you want to talk about the messaging stuff for 15 minutes or?
Yeah, I can bring up the topic, and then yeah, let's see how it goes. It might be also something that we follow up on later calls, mailing list, other forums as well. I wanted to kind of get the community's help in terms of the activity of raising awareness about StarlingX, and just put out some new messaging and updated narrative about the project. Yeah, like StarlingX, I did some background on the Etherpad. I don't have separate slides to present, but as the Etherpad says, like it's not necessarily that easy to sort of, let's say, sell StarlingX to someone, in the sense that it is a complex infrastructure stack, and it does have some opinionated ways of deploying and configuring and managing and maintaining this stack and platform. So for those who don't want to make the decisions, this is great. For others who want to have a say in this, it's not great. Like, this is something that could draw people in, and it often keeps people away, because even if they don't know what decisions they want to make, they feel that they are already excluded, because again, StarlingX does have some opinions baked in. And this session is not about convincing anybody to make StarlingX less opinionated. This session is more about how can we help people who don't yet have a deep knowledge about StarlingX to understand what it does, why it does it in certain ways, and why that is beneficial for people who are considering to become users or become vendors to use / support, distribute, build their business on StarlingX.
By making it less opinionated.
Again, sometimes it's nice not needing to make a decision or having an opinion about something, but my challenge personally is that StarlingX is complex enough that, since I'm not an active user who would deploy this, I don't know, a few times a day, a week, or a year at least, and using it, helping other users to use it, I don't have personally that deep enough knowledge to be able to tell people, like tell new users, why they should pick StarlingX. Like, you know,
I think it's pretty clear over the years, and all the, what I'll call, complaining about how opinionated certain aspects of StarlingX are, like how many master controllers you can have, and storage on workers or controllers, and the variances of, if I go straight Kubernetes, I can pretty much build it the way I want it. If I use StarlingX I can't. And that's been, I would say, my biggest blocker to getting StarlingX into more places. And I'm sure we've also heard on the call the other gentleman with the networking issues. So I think overall, the focus should be, how do we make this easier to work with? And
So-
then go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, on the topic of the number of controller nodes, there is a reason behind it. Originally, the goal was to try and reduce the number of controller nodes down to 2 to try and get into a small footprint. And because of that, you have to make certain engineering choices that then make it more difficult to expand up to 3 or more controller nodes. And
Right.
so the limitation of having 2 controller nodes is sort of a fallout from early design choices that were made.
Which should be unmade because you no longer have
So
a
if
quorum.
you want to do that, you are absolutely welcome to propose changes to allow supporting 3 controller nodes. It would mean fairly substantial rework of some pretty low-level components in the platform. But if you want to do that, feel free to propose a spec and feel free to start working on that.
So to continue, there's things you can do with it easily. There's things that it's just too difficult to do. So I think marketability wise, the messaging from my perspective is, yes, it's easy to actually deploy the stack. However, that stack may not look like what you would plan. How do you convey that message? I think easiest ways is in the documentation. Why do you pick StarlingX? Because number one, easily installable off of a USB stick or an ISO for bare metal. Not so friendly with virtual environments. Caring about the platform, I mean, to answer that question, it's stable. We haven't had any major catastrophic failures. And there are other alternative options that exist in the industry. However, number one, the company Wind River backs it. I mean, I think I'm the only one on the call not from Wind River currently. And
Ildico's not.
I
well, okay.
am
And
Julia.
Scott Camp, I hear. Yeah, that's you.
Yeah. So, I mean, messaging, I think the biggest problem I have with it is growing the community so that there's more involvement other than just the Wind River. And there's other people looking at this and contributing to the stack. How do you put that into a message? I mean, I myself, it's worked for us 70% of the time. It's allowed us to do things we didn't think would be feasible in the industry without a lot of work. And StarlingX has actually made it easier to do them. However, there have also been the pain points where we couldn't do something that was required. I don't know. It's really tough to how do you define why somebody should pick StarlingX? It's a stable platform for one. I mean, you guys build this thing, but who's actually going out and installing it in the field in this group or on this call? These are questions you should be asking the current user base. Why we chose StarlingX over, Kubernetes on or whatever flavor of Kubernetes out there, Platform 9 or what have you. I don't think it's really a question that people who don't go out and physically install it can really honestly answer.
I understand. I'm asking the community in the sense that we have a vendor company here with customers. who I personally don't have access to ask them this question. I tried. I haven't succeeded yet with asking the questions them directly. Going back to what you were saying, like, can you share, not necessarily on this call, but as a follow-up, information about the things that worked well, that, for instance, made your life easier, that the things that you mentioned that you didn't expect to be able to do with a solution, but StarlingX was able to deliver that functionality to you, like the things that it made easier for you, the things that you didn't expect to be able to do, but you are, because StarlingX does exist. Like that kind of information as a case study would help a lot in terms of talking about the platform and the project. Because to be honest, if I go and read the release notes and the documentation, then I can tell that there's a new PTP feature and there's this card, and then what? Like, why does that matter? I don't have that information. That's not in the documentation. And I'm doing my best to put a story around things, but I can only go so far without the actual hands-on experience and the actual customers, the actual users to have access to.
Yeah, my thoughts, like, on that would be even in Wind River's commercial product, I get to talk directly to some of our customers and users, but I don't get a ton of interaction with them. But my impression of why, some customers have picked StarlingX, is because of some of the key features, and the key features I believe that are big are, one is that we scale small, very small, and reasonably big as far as an individual cloud. Like we go from a single server, single socket server to 200 nodes in a standalone cloud. But then the whole distributed cloud architecture, I think, is a fundamental thing that it was a differentiator in users that chose StarlingX opposed to something else, just because of because of the level of orchestration that the distributed cloud provides across all of the 1,000 subclouds, in order to orchestrate patching and upgrades and firmware upgrades and Kubernetes up versions, stuff like that. Doing all those management pieces across a distributed cloud system, and was a big differentiator. And then the other differentiator, I think, was just this, the general architecture of distributed cloud, that it was individual clouds at the edge that were autonomous, I think was a big factor. So I think to me, those were some of the key points. They're high level things, right? Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Ilko, is when you look at our feature list from release to release, it's a lot of little things, and sometimes you don't see the big picture items because yeah, it's lots of little things about PTP, but I think PTP support for obviously telecom end users is very big. And I think I always joke with Gada and Matt that, holy crap, how many PTP features can we do? I think we've done like 20 features on PTP. So we must have, I'm not knowledgeable in that area, but we must have a pretty decent PTP solution for telecom customers. And that's a big point as well. But anyways, The whole distributed cloud thing and the scalability, small and large, especially small, I think are some of the key reasons that the customers chose StarlingX over something else.
Well, I would say the one word I can use as to why I've stayed with the platform is its deployability.
Okay.
I mean, I walked into a company that struggled for 3 weeks to get Kubernetes and OpenStack Helm up on a contract that they outsourced to somebody. And I pulled the USB out of my pocket, put the ISO on it, and said, I can build you a cloud in a day. And they were like, impossible. And I did it with StarlingX. And it's unheard of to be able to do that with something like, Platform 9 or other automated Ansible Terraformed versions. So I would say deployability is the one instance why I chose and stay with StarlingX.
Awesome. Can I quote you on this that you just said? That's what I need. Thank you. Thank you all. This was all great and very, very useful information. And yeah, like statements and quotes like that and stories like that is what we need, because features don't always speak for themselves. I know that people on the call here are mostly involved in feature development, so I did not want and meant to insult anyone with this statement. But when it comes to putting something on social media, into a high-level talk just to make people aware that the project exists, the features don't always speak for themselves, because people in the room or on the social media platform are either looking for those specific features, or they don't know they do until you give them the big picture. So I was looking for the big picture kind of items. And if I can ask you all that whenever you have some insights that contribute to the big picture of the whys and hows of StarlingX, to just share them and highlight them, that would be amazing and very, very helpful.
All right. Yeah, no, that was good discussion to kind of get some feedback from on what people think the big time differentiators are for StarlingX. All right. I think we're probably at the end of we are at the end of the agenda. So I'd just like to thank everybody for participating the last couple of days, and just remind anybody that for any of the stuff that's been presented, to make sure we got it on Google Docs so people can go back and look at these minutes and kind of see what was discussed. Any final comments from anybody?
I just wanna say thank you as well to everyone. It was great discussions today, and I already put the recording into the Etherpad for yesterday's session, and I will do that for today as well once it's available. So anyone who missed yesterday, like I did some chunks, can already go back and listen to it.
Great. Thanks for doing that, everyone. All right. So community meetings will start up again next week. Hope to see everybody there.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay.